Good evening and welcome again to Public Perspective. I'm your host, Kevin McDermott. And as those of you who watch our show often know, we cover a wide range of topics on this show. So tonight we'll actually be getting very low to the ground in our topic. Our guest tonight is Dave DiNaso of Dave DiNaso's Traveling World of Reptiles. And we have lots of other guests here who will make an appearance later, right?
They will. Thanks for having me.
Well, my pleasure. So I'm sure you've been asked this many times, but this seems like an unusual way to make a living.
Yeah, I narrowed down the competition, didn't
Yeah, sure.
I? Yeah, how did I get started?
Yes,
Well,
how did you get here? Right.
You know, from the time I could remember things, I may have been 2.5, 3 years old. I was that kid that would go out in the backyard, and if I'd see a spider or a snake, I'm grabbing it. So it's been something that I think I was born with. And I say that because I have 3 brothers that are close in age. And if a snake crossed our paths, I'd be the only one going after it.
They'd
no
scatter
interest.
and
they'd scatter, yeah.
you'd go after it, right?
And my parents wouldn't even let me have a dog. So, they say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Well, I rolled a couple miles away because it seemed like I was the only one in the family who, had this deep interest in not just reptiles, but animals in general. So
do you ever find yourself slithering along the ground?
no, I walk on 2 legs.
Okay,
right?
just checking, yeah.
But I'll tell you that there was 2 things I was very good at from the time I was very young, and that was making people laugh and taking care of animals. So I kind of found a way to
put them together.
Put them together, and actually my hobby is my living. I do this full time. I do over 1,200 shows a year. Now I do have...
That's, what, 4 a day, 3 or 4 a day?
Yeah, 3 a day, yeah, 3, 4 a day. So, and I do have employees. I tell people I get a year older, and the animals get 10 pounds heavier every year. So
Yes.
as I get older, I just don't have the energy. But I used to do, between 700 and 900 shows by myself a year. Now that I have employees, we can kick it up a little bit because there's obviously more availability. But yeah, I've been doing it. Ironically, I'm going to be celebrating my 25th anniversary.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. Just in a few weeks. So 25
It's hard
years.
for any business to last 25 years, but particularly one that you love so much and you've been able to do on your own to start out. That's quite an accomplishment.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, well, like I said, it's very unique. So, the competition has increased because the reptile hobby is just exploded. But, most people who do work with reptiles, they're breeding the animals and selling them, to the pet stores, where I actually do a show. It's a very educational, funny show. And what separates my show from a lot of the other competition is the humor. I consider myself an entertainer first and an animal guy second, whereas...
And so we're going to get ample demonstration of this tonight, right?
Right. Just you. I'm just going to do
just
that.
Just me, a show just for me. Right?
Sure.
This seems like it would be a difficult thing to do. I mean, you have to maintain the health of these animals, and I imagine you have more than are just here on the show tonight. So how do you maintain this menagerie of supporting cast here?
A lot of it was just learning on the job, going to the pet store, seeing an animal I was interested in, buying it, reading a little bit, setting it up, taking care of it. And, as you go on, like with anything else, you just figure it out. And I mean, now we're taking care of anything from crocodiles and alligators to, 15, 16-foot pythons. So
one of those is here tonight, right? In
oh
these
yeah,
cases.
yeah. We got no shortage of big animals here today.
Yes, and just let me know when I need to duck or dive for cover, right?
Right. I will.
So what made you decide to go out and start doing a show? I mean, obviously you love the animals, but how did you get into the show business side?
Well, like I said, I was the class clown, as you can imagine. I drove my teachers nuts. And, I was that guy who was probably most likely to fail in school. At least that's what my teachers believed. But, I knew I was always kind of an entertainer from the time I was a kid. I'm that guy that you don't want to sit across from me at the dinner table at Thanksgiving because I would.
I'd never eat. I'd be laughing too much.
Well, no, I would put you down like with some one-liner or something.
You're right. Then I will never invite you.
Okay, that's okay. We've got plenty of family to do that. But I found a way to basically, how do I say it? I'm kind of a smart ass for a living. I get paid to be a smart ass. It's really what I do. I have a quick wit, always have, and I use that to my advantage. So.
And by the way, that sounds like a great way to make a living. I
it
love
really
the
is.
idea that you
right. Who makes a living doing that? Quick-witted, I mean. It's almost like stand-up comedy with animals is basically what I've kind of combined the two. And I ran with it, and it took off right away. You know, I mean, I did 41 shows that first year, but by year 2 or 3, we were already doing 400 or 500 shows. And now, like I said, you know, we turn down as many people as we you know, put in the schedule because there's only 3 of us to perform the shows. So
the scheduling means that there's only so many shows you can do, right?
Correct. So many shows, so many hours in a day. So, but you know, I'm fine with where I'm at. You know, I also travel. We like to travel, and we started a YouTube channel.
Hence the name, Traveling World of Reptiles. Right?
Well, this originated traveling was I was going to travel to you, right? You know, I mean, I thought about being the stationary world of reptiles where people would come to me, make it a little easier, but
it's more fun to move around.
It is. It really is. You're not looking at the same 4 walls, but you know, it kind of evolved into us traveling. We have a YouTube channel called Nature in Your Face. We just got back from Costa Rica, you know, a few weeks ago. So it's kind of branching out now. We're doing bigger and better things.
Well, and I would think that by having different settings for your shows, so you go to different places, schools or retirement homes or wherever, that it changes the show up a little bit, right?
Absolutely. My show is 90% improv. You know, of course, we have things that we have to say similar because, you know, you can only say so much about a python or a lizard that you bring. But we feed off the energy of the audience. Sometimes the funniest thing is what the kids say and what we say back to them. But, you know, I get some adults that, you know, they have a little too much to drink and they try to heckle me and then they regret it. I tell people, don't draw attention to yourself. You know, you don't want to do that at our show, you know.
Yeah, no, I have friends who are stand-up comics and it's the same thing. It's like, never try to take on a pro.
Right, I've heard it all. You know, I've heard it all. So just be quiet and we're good.
Well, it's my job here not to be quiet, so I'm your audience for tonight.
Right, that's all right.
I will, actually, maybe I'll heckle you and see what kind of put down I get in response, right? We'll give
I'll
it a
go
shot.
easy on you. I want to be invited back.
Yeah, right. That sounds like a deal. Well, enough talking about animals. I want to see some of these guys. So
all right.
Where do we start?
Well, during my show, I typically don't take them out in any particular order, but I wanted to bring out something very impressive first. So it's going to require me moving around just a little bit, but I'm going to bring out what is the longest snake on the planet. This is a snake that can grow to literally close to 30 feet, can weigh over 300 pounds, and it can swallow an antelope whole. Now, it's not that big yet.
And you can bring this out on my show.
I'm going to bring it out on your show. So yeah,
checking.
I was telling somebody else that asked me. It only eats on Thursday. So
well, being today.
Right. This is a reticulated python. Now, I should start out telling you it is not supposed to be this color. This is it's lacking certain color pigmentation in its skin. It should be the color of the bark, the leaves, the sticks on the forest floor, which would obviously make it, you know, more of a brown color, and where you see some of the lighter colors, it would be a tan color. So it would be perfectly camouflaged amongst the leaf litter.
From Southern California, he's a surfer and he's blonde, right?
That's right, absolutely.
So here, let me.
Yeah, you know, and I'm gonna here. You know what? You're gonna hold the head, is what you're gonna do.
Oh my goodness!
Just kind of, he's gonna kind of just do what he wants to do, but you know, let him go wherever he wants. Sometimes he'll crawl up, and we're gonna get him all the way out. But look at this. This is 16 feet of snake here, and he's just gonna kind of coil around whatever he can. Look at that. So I'll get him so he doesn't stretch. But now I don't know if you're surprised, but a lot of people are surprised at the fact that they are not slimy. They feel very dry, very leathery.
very dry, and actually, but very smooth. It's actually kind of cool to the touch.
That's just because he's at room temperature, being at that in that box. Normally, I would have him under a heat light. I'm sure he's loving these lights here because it's warm.
That's why he's active all of a sudden.
Yeah, all of a sudden he's active. Around. That's because he's feeling this heat. But anyway, feels very similar to the skin of an orange or a grapefruit. Now, reticulated pythons are not native to our area. Obviously, this is from from Southeast Asia and Indonesia. So you're not going to find one if you're camping.
Yes, I wouldn't be looking for them, to tell you the truth. Yeah. Now I see that it looks like there are sections. Is that why they're reticulated? So I see various.
Actually, they're reticulated for these. It means net or chain-like. Now, if you put your hand out, you see the lines in your hand when you. So when he coils, that's like a crease, like in your, or the crease in your elbow. So that's where that comes from. So he's always coiled up. They're like, I mean, they have a very flexible spine, very flexible body. So you know, look at that small box. I mean, it's only what 3 feet by 1.5 feet, and he coils up. He's perfectly comfortable in there, and that's
so he's 17 feet and fits.
He's
in
about
a
16 feet.
16 still.
Yeah, and that's not cruel. Actually, the snake, they would use this box like they would use the abandoned animal burrow or the hollowed-out log in the wild. So they prefer to be in smaller spaces because they feel more comfortable. I tell my audience, that's kind of worried, well, you know, how do they breathe? Why are they in these boxes? And I tell them, it's like a child that's afraid of the dark. What do? They throw a blanket over their head. You know, they feel very secure in that tight space. So
I still do that from time to time.
yeah, I'm sure you do.
Yeah.
Well, most people do that when they see my snake. They just run.
Right.
But now you see that tongue?
Yes.
He's not
hard to
kissing you.
miss.
He's not even tasting. He's actually smelling. A
Oh,
reptile.
smells through their tongue.
They do. They have a paired organ at the roof of the mouth. Now, don't be afraid. You can put your hand right there. It doesn't really feel like anything. It almost feels like a little piece of hair.
Yeah.
You can hear him breathing. That's not a form of aggression. That's just air that's passing through those nostrils.
It sounds almost like a hiss. But
It does. It does. And it has a lot to do with the fact that I'm pushing on his lungs. The lungs
yeah.
are actually elongated. They have only one functional lung, but when I pick him up, I kind of force the air out of his nose when I pick him up. But anyway, paired organ at the roof of the mouth called the Jacobson's organ tells them what they're smelling, not tasting. You can't even fathom how awesome their sense of smell is. Much more well developed.
is that how they hunt as well?
It is, and it's also a way to avoid predators. So. But,
now, who preys on a snake like this?
nothing at this size, but when they're smaller, an eagle, an owl, even a wild cat would make a meal of this thing. But once they get a certain size, the only thing they really have to worry about is humans.
Yeah, yes.
And that's something they have to worry about. Not only humans directly killing them, but taking away their habitat, which you know, would obviously cause the numbers to go down. But they're doing fairly well in the rainforests of Southeast Asia. So. This one doesn't, it's not an endangered species or anything. So it's a beautiful animal. Though,
But it is,
color.
in fact, I'm looking at the pattern of the scales on the underside of the snake. It's just fantastic.
Now look at these lift up. They're almost like little legs, and that helps them grip onto the irregularities in the ground. So those scales kind of move in a straight row, almost like a wave, and they grip the ground with that. So you can feel, you can lift that up. It's just, you feel it?
He doesn't mind this, huh?
Nope, not at all. And you know what that's made of? The same material your fingernails are made up of. That's keratin. So.
Huh.
Yep.
So when they're moving, so he's using his spine to...
Well, not really his spine. I mean, obviously the spine is flexible. There's 4 ways a snake moves. There's serpentina, there's concertina, there's different ways they move. And this one, usually, I mean, it's almost like magic. If I put him down, it almost looks like somebody has a rope tied around his neck and he's pulling him forward. But watch the ripple. You'll see, now that he's turning, you won't see that. But when he goes straight, you'll see a ripple effect right under the ground. That's him kind of grabbing all those irregularities on the carpet, which is moving him forward.
So right now he's doing that.
He's
Those
doing that.
bottom scales.
Yep, you can see that. If you're kind of down lower looking at that. So it's interesting because you know what, people tell me all the time, snakes are dumb, all they do is drag their belly. And you know what I say to them? How can you say that when this animal lacks what every other animal needs to be successful? It has
no arms, no legs.
No arms, no legs. It doesn't have ears, although they can pick up vibrations of the air, but you know, basically you can call it deaf and limbless. Now if I threw you in a rainforest with no ears, no arms, and no legs, how long do you think you're going to live?
Oh, about a minute, maybe.
Right, if that.
Yeah.
So I call him one of the most intelligent animals in the world for what it is, which is basically a giant yellow hot dog with teeth. You know, that's basically what this thing is. And here, I'll prove something to you. This is interesting. So,
now, before you go on, you had said that this should have a different color, and I cut you off.
No, that's
so
okay.
Why is it this particular color?
It hatched lacking the typical color pigmentation. You know, someone found an albino like this in the wild, and some breeder with too much money bought it
Too much time.
for a ridiculous amount of money. And then once you breed these, the pet trade, when you're the first person to breed an animal like this and produce that color, there's a demand for it. I mean, I'm telling you, there's some... it's a big underground reptile hobby, and some of these snakes sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars when you're the first one to produce a certain color or pattern. And, you know, then all of a sudden everybody has one, and everybody's breeding them, and it goes from $100,000 to $100 at the local pet store.
But like Bitcoin, right. So he seems like sort of like a dog who's been raised in a crate.
You know what?
Seems to like going back into the box.
Even with the lid off, he won't come out. Honest to God, he will not come out.
Huh.
And it's a constrictor. I should have mentioned that too. This is not a venomous snake, but I tell my audience this thing will kill you 100 times faster than any cobra or rattlesnake. Now, it's not good to get bit by a venomous snake, but if you do get bit, one bit of good news. You get to go to the hospital. The doctor's going to roll up your sleeve. He's going to inject your veins with an anti-venom. It's going to counteract the effects of the venom in your system. This thing gets around your neck. You've literally got 60 seconds to get it off because you can't hold your breath much longer than that. And I'll tell you what, if there's nobody there to help you, and even if there is, we're still probably not going to make it. These things are amazingly powerful. They're very dangerous animals, particularly in the wild or one in captivity that has not been, I don't want to call it trained, I condition these animals by picking them up over and over again. They just understand I'm not food and I'm not a predator. And they almost think at the point where they get this size, they either believe they're human or you're a reptile, one of the two, or a snake. I don't know if you are a snake or not, Kevin.
Yes. Well, it depends on what day of the week and who I'm hanging with, really what I feel like.
All right. Now watch. He won't come out. He'll just peek and then he'll go right back down. But he has full reign to come out. He won't because that's his safe space to him, and he enjoys it. It's not that he's stressed out, but they prefer to be in there, just like in the wild, they prefer to be underground away from you, looking at them and trying to...
So speaking of feeding, what is it that you feed these guys?
Well, you can order... I never feed live food for a number of reasons. First of all, I don't like seeing an animal suffer. I had a teacher call me, and he said, hey, I want you to come out to a school and perform a show. I said, no problem. He said, but I want you to feed one of your snakes a mouse in front of the students. You know, well, I have like a fish tank or an aquarium. We'll put them in there, we'll dry. And I said, I'm not going to do that. And he said, why? That's nature. I said, that's not nature. He says, what do you mean it's not nature? I said, nature is not 4 glass walls that a rat runs around until a snake inevitably grabs it and constricts it. In nature, the animal has a chance of getting away. So I buy frozen food. You know, you can order anything from a frozen turkey to a frozen rat, and you thaw them out.
You can buy frozen rats.
Oh yeah, there's a
So
company
next
called Mice on Ice.
Right. Can bring frozen rats to my brother's house, and we'll do that for Thanksgiving alongside the turkey.
There you go. If you guys get into that, whatever you do. So you thaw them out. And another thing, last thing I'll tell you about that snake, and we'll move on to another animal because I know we have a lot more here. But snakes, boas, pythons, and pit vipers, which include rattlesnakes, have what are known as heat-sensing pits. Some people call them thermal receptors. So if you turn the lights off in this studio and it was so dark you could not see your hand in front of your face, that you are glowing in the dark to that snake. Much like army goggles, you know, those army goggles, see kind of that green?
Right.
Well, he picks up the infrared heat coming off our body and the cooler surrounding air temperature. So who needs ears, who needs eyes, who needs anything when you can literally see an animal in complete darkness? So.
Well, and snakes have been around probably longer than humans, I would guess. I mean, I think that
if you believe in that, yeah. I mean, some people. I don't talk about that. If you go into a school and you talk about evolution, they come at you like this. And if you go into a school and talk about creation, it's the same thing. So I kind of tell people I don't have really any opinion. When somebody asks that question, I'm just kind of like, you know, because I don't want to offend anybody by saying
you can
what
offend me, really. It's hard to offend me. So just no, but they have been around for a very long time, right? And in more or less the same form, right?
Yeah,
Snakes.
you know, well, see, here's the thing. If you believe in it, a lot of the books will teach you that they, you know, used to have limbs, and then as their prey evolved to burrow underground, the snakes had to chase after them, so they lost their limbs, and so, but you know, not everybody believes that.
Yeah,
that's just a theory out there, so.
Evolution, it's a theory. Gravity, it's a theory, right? Yeah,
I just tell people, hey, God made evolution, now we're good.
There you go,
Yeah, both, right?
Yeah. So you mentioned it, turkey. An animal of this size, 16 feet, would that be, would you take a frozen turkey?
I want to show you something real quick. I'm just going to grab his head. I know where you're going with this. If I pick this snake up, I'm going to show it so the camera can see this. I can literally put my fingers around its neck. So its neck is the circumference of a golf ball.
Yes.
That big. That's 5 times smaller than your neck.
Yeah.
How on God's green earth can a snake with a neck this big swallow a turkey that large? Simple answer. A couple reasons. Let me just snap this lid. Their jaws are attached by ligament, not fixed bone like our own. That allows them to open their mouth on a 180 degree. Now, stretching is the second answer I was going to give you. The skin beneath the scales is elastic, almost like a balloon or a rubber band. You know, if you picture a balloon, it's this big, but you blow it up, it's like that.
Yeah.
That snake is a balloon, but instead of blowing it up with air, it blows itself up with food. So, and you do see this big, if you give it something big, you can tell it ate something.
You see it moving through as it
Correct.
digests.
I generally give it a few smaller items, so I don't see that big lump. Rather than give it a beach ball sized animal, why not give it 2 or 3 smaller ones? You take it to a show, people are like, did it just eat your child? You know, what's in there? You know, so.
And that's when you make jokes to the audience of young kids.
There you go.
It could be you, so behave.
Yeah,
right?
so be quiet. That, or you're going to get kicked in the shin. One of the two.
Right.
But yeah, so it goes from this to this to that.
Wow.
It allows it to eat things much larger than the circumference of its neck or body.
Amazing.
It is. It really is. It's the only animal in the world that can do that, really, like that.
I mean, what a successful species to be able to do that and be able to navigate, as you say, with you know, no arms, no legs, no ears, and yet have all these other sensory capabilities that they have been able to thrive for.
Nature knows what it's doing, you know.
It does.
You know, we're supposedly the most intelligent creatures on the planet, but you know, we're probably going to be.
I think the state of the world would argue with that.
Right. I mean, if we become extinct, it's as if everything becomes extinct, it's a result of us. The world doesn't care, right? You know? And it'll heal itself, right?
It will. So what else do we have?
All right, let's see. All right, I'm going to bring out. I bring one amphibian to my shows. I'm the traveling world of reptiles. So people say, why are you bringing amphibians? Well, I'm sure you know this, that you know, there's a lot of books titled Reptiles and Amphibians. And you know what's interesting about it? They're not closely related, and they're not very similar outside of the fact that they're both cold-blooded. So I bring one because so many people associate the two together. But I only bring one to my show, and this is funny. He's kind of like the Billy Carter of amphibians, the one I brought here.
For those who remember Billy Carter.
Just
Yes.
picture an old drunk Kermit the Frog here.
Yeah, okay, right.
This is the second largest frog in the world. It's from Africa. It is called an African pixie frog. Some people refer to it as the African bullfrog. I call it sumo. Sumo because you'll
Sumo
see.
wrestlers?
Yeah, that's
Yes,
right. So,
yes.
all right. So, if this is the camera, we're going to pan it. I'm going to just look at this thing. Look at that. This is a pixie frog.
Oh my.
Now put your hands out, Kevin. You're not going to get
Yes,
warts, I promise.
yes, okay.
That's an urban legend. Now he's wet because amphibians they
Need to stay
be
wet.
wet. Now they don't necessarily have to live in water, but they have to live in an area where their skin's not going to dry out. That could be a humid rainforest. It could be under a wet pile of leaves. Now this is an unbelievable frog. When he kind of tucks his legs up and in,
Right.
he's the shape of a lily pad, and he'll sit in the water, and that'll keep him safe from crocodiles or birds of prey, or anything that might think about making a meal out of this. The more camouflage, the more you look like something in the background, the less chance you have of being eaten. Now, if you turn him this way, you see those spurs on his feet. I'm just going to kind of hold it out like that. There's 5 toes, and they have a shovel.
Sure.
Because during the dry season, what are they going to do? They need water. So what he does is he digs himself a hole, covers himself with soil, and he makes like a little humid cocoon. They almost have this, they have this skin that protects the underneath layer here, and they just sit in that cocoon for sometimes 6 to 8 months until the rainy season, and they pop back out of the ground and they do their thing again.
So it doesn't have to eat in that 6 or 8 months?
No. These things have a very slow digestive system when they're what's called estivating.
I could use that, really. I could not eat for 6 or 8 months at a time.
Right? Might be a new diet plan.
Yeah, it would
I
be
see where you're
great,
going.
yeah. He's also he seems to be very unperturbed by being handled, like he doesn't care.
Again, these animals, now this isn't typical.
Okay.
If this was a wild animal, or even one, like I said earlier, in captivity that was not handled, it wouldn't behave like this.
Okay, but
This animal's
he's
just
used
like,
to it, yeah.
okay, Dave, here we go again. We're at, how many
Yeah,
shows
what are you
is
doing?
this
Yeah,
now?
what are you doing with me?
Right. So, and they don't have to move. This frog, even in the wild, is not a species, because the more you move, the more attention you're drawing to yourself, and you have the likelihood of a predator seeing you. So,
Right, so he's very sedentary.
you have camouflage for 2 reasons. You're hiding from the things that eat you, but you're hiding from the things you eat.
Yes.
So big dragonflies are buzzing along the shoreline.
And
They
they
have to
think-
rest their wings.
Sure.
They make a fatal mistake. Now this thing is so smart, they will often just put the eyes and the nostrils above the water line. This is underwater a 1/4 of an inch, forcing the bug to land right on top of its head. And all it has to do is and
The
get a
tongue
meal.
comes up right behind it.
Right. So this is a really cool amphibian. I love them, and they can live 40 years. And weigh 6 pounds. The only frog bigger is the Goliath frog, which is another African species.
Wow.
But this is the second biggest frog on the planet.
And so I'm sure one of the questions you always get asked is, what's the difference between a frog and a toad?
Yeah, and I get the turtle and the tortoise thing. Now, generally speaking, toads, they have the warty skin. They live they're more terrestrial, which means they're more land amphibians. Whereas the frogs, generally speaking, live either close to the water or you'll find them in the water. You also have tree frogs. So you're not really wrong by saying, I tell people that ask me that same question with turtles and tortoises, all tortoises are turtles, but not all turtles are tortoises, if that makes sense.
Oh,
so
okay. Yeah,
I don't get you on a technicality, whatever you call
okay.
it,
And actually, I've been reading recently that frogs are endangered. There's a frog fungus
There
going around the
is.
world.
Yes,
That
not
is
only that,
dangerous,
not
yeah.
only that, but being in Costa Rica, which, believe it or not, 5% of all life forms live in Costa Rica. I mean, that is a huge number when you consider how
small
big
country.
the planet. It is a very small country. And that amazes me, but even in Costa Rica, the golden toad, which hasn't been seen since I think 1986 or something, it's disappeared and they have no idea why. Aside from that fungus you're talking about,
Right.
it's very alarming to scientists because amphibians are the first indicators that there's something wrong in the environment. In some of these
The
pristine
canary in
areas.
the coal mine, right.
Yeah, right, because they're dying, and then well, why are they dying? There doesn't seem to be any pollution or acid rain, and that's alarming to scientists. So they're starting to study more amphibians to find out what's going on and why they're disappearing. So, like I said, it's a good species to study when things start going wrong in the environment.
Yes. So we have about 5 minutes left, and you've got a number of cases here. So
I'm gonna here.
let's see what we can do, right?
I'll tell you what. We'll take out multiple animals. How does that sound? Let's do this. I am going to take out a cousin of the Komodo dragon. This is one of the largest lizards in the world. I'm going to slide this over here and use this as our little table, if that's okay.
You bet.
I'll get this out of the way. Wow, time really goes by fast.
Doesn't
when
it,
we're
though?
talking about animals, man. I'll tell
Well,
you.
when you're having fun.
I'm going to ask you just to step to your
Yes,
right
there
a
we
little
go.
bit. All right, now, fourth biggest lizard in the world. This, I'm going to ask you to put the lid on here, Kevin, so we can put that right back on top.
Oops.
Well, we'll get them.
There we go.
Beautiful. Look at this.
All right.
All right, this is a black throat monitor lizard. It gets its name. It's obvious because underneath the neck, it is solid, dark
Oh,
color.
yeah,
All the other
sure.
spots there. Now,
Now, you mentioned something about Komodo dragon. Is that?
that is a relative. That is a monitor lizard. Now, the
Okay.
Komodo dragon only gets the name Komodo dragon as a generic name because if you have a mythical dragon that you see in the book, they supposedly look closest to him. But
Gotcha.
this is the black throat monitor from Africa.
He's cool.
Isn't he
Yeah.
cool?
Yes.
Now, look, this is another lizard. Couldn't be more different. That's a green iguana.
Oh.
They're buds, so they'll hang out
Are
with
they-
each other. This guy's from South America. This guy's from Africa. This guy's arboreal, lives in trees. This guy's terrestrial, lives on the ground. This guy likes rainforest. This guy likes very arid, desert-like areas, although he doesn't live in true desert. He lives in Tanzania. Look at all the spikes on his back, so physically he's different.
Now, if he were about 10 times his size, he would be ferocious and fearsome, and people
Well,
would think
they
we're
don't
under
get
attack.
much bigger. With the tail, they'll get 6 feet. This one here is much heavier, bigger teeth because it's a carnivore, eats meat. But this guy, they make pretty good pets. These have been floating around the pet trade since the early 70s.
And tell me again, this one is called a
It's called a green iguana.
green iguana. Okay. And what's the flap under the
Yeah, they
chin
use
there?
this. They're very territorial. If another iguana invades their territory, what they do is they extend this, and it's kind of like holding up a sign saying, hey, other iguana, hit
Hey,
the road, there's going to be a fight. It's
my turf,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So real quick, Kevin, you're going to ask me questions, but I'm going to try to just...
Hey, no, I want to see the animals.
All right,
you
so
wanna get
here,
about,
this is
2.5
cool.
minutes left, so.
Now, we do bring much larger alligators. By law, I have to have the mouth taped shut,
yes,
so he's,
I see
he's
that,
not a
yes.
ferocious animal, but
Yes.
I can get in trouble
and,
without
and it's
that.
okay. I appreciate it that his.
So I'm going to
mouth
let you
is
hold.
taped. Yeah.
How often you get to hold an alligator, okay?
And this will
You
be
just
the
run
first
around his
time.
tail. There you go.
Yes.
And, yep.
Wow.
Now that is going to get anywhere from 8 to 15 feet. They can weigh well over 500 pounds.
Well, I'm glad I know you now.
Second
You're
largest
tiny.
reptile in the United States. The biggest would be the American crocodile, which a lot of people don't realize there is a crocodile species at the southern tip of Florida. So they look very much like lizards. These are in the crocodilian family. These two are in the lizard family.
So is an alligator actually a lizard?
It is not. Nope, it's in the
not.
crocodilian family. It's totally
Which is-
separate from
oh,
lizards. They do
interesting.
outwardly
Because
look like
they
them.
look similar, right?
Most of them come from Florida, where I tell people never visit. It's the worst state ever because there's only 3 things to see in Florida: alligators, Mickey Mouse, and old people. That's what I tell
There we go. Yeah. That and the occasional hurricane, right?
Do we have time for one more?
Well, we have about 60 seconds left.
60
so it has to
seconds.
be
well,
real fast.
We're going to take out one more and see. That's
Can
fine.
I lay this guy down on the other guys here?
Put him down.
There we
Here,
go.
I'll throw him back in the box because if he jumps, I'm sure that's not going to be. All right, so real quick, I just want to show you one more big guy. And this is, this guy is nope, you know what? We're going to do this, Kevin. I'm going to let you unclip that yellow, or lift the lid. I think it's already unclipped. Pick it up, and then you're going to put the lid on for me again.
All right.
And we'll talk for 10 seconds. This,
Because that's about what we got. 10 seconds.
here we go.
Here we go. 10 seconds.
10 seconds.
The giant tortoise.
Giant tortoise from Africa, African sulcata tortoise, 3rd biggest tortoise in the world. It's going to look like a little Volkswagen when it's done growing, another herbivore. Super sweet, makes a great pet, but I don't recommend it for this reason. It's too big.
Well, on that note, believe it or not, we're out of time. Dave,
Hey,
man,
that's
it has
great.
been a pleasure.
Oh, no, thank you so much for
Thank you
having me.
for thank you for being here.
All right.
Thank all of you for joining us once again on Public Perspective. I'm your host, Kevin McDermott. You can find us every Saturday night at 8 on Comcast Channel 19, or see us on the web at publicperspective.tv. So next time, thank you and good night. Thank you, Dave.
You're very welcome. Thank you.